Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Dustin Strong, and this is the Ask Me Anything Hour. So every Tuesday, 12:45 to 1, we answer all the questions that are emailed in or questions that you have for us right now live. But today, we've got some doozies. So put your seatbelts on. We're going to go through some crazy stuff. We're going to talk about all kinds of autoimmune things and stealth pathogens and diabetes, autoimmune. So we've got some really exciting things to go through. But first of all, I do want to respond to an email that I got from a gentleman asking me about these products. Commonly, people are sending me products saying, hey, this sounds so exciting. All these doctors are talking about how this is helping that. I'm like, great, I'm excited too. And the title was Reversing Heart Disease Without Drugs. Very interesting. And I started looking into it, and it's basically talking about vitamin C and its association with heart disease, which is something we've been talking about a lot. So again, I'm really excited about this. This is really important. People understand that there's a huge vitamin C connection to cardiovascular health. And as I start going through it, of course, it's trying to sell a product, and there is massive amounts of synthetic vitamin C in here. But then they even write in the article, well, we realized that we had to add in other things beyond that, like lysine and proline. My point in reading this is that, again, if you're getting vitamin C from a whole food, if you're getting it the way nature has already packaged it, you don't have to take 8 different products to be able to get what's in whole food vitamin C. And this has given you cardio C and heart technology and cardio aid and all of it are just different aspects of being able to get in portions of the vitamin C complex. And again, I would caution people against going this route because where is the vitamin J in here? Where is the vitamin P? Where are the carotenoids? Where are the things that are going to help complete that whole food vitamin C? These are still thousands of percentages of ascorbic acid in this product. And remember, if you guys have seen any of these videos before, 100 milligrams is pretty much the most you're going to get at one time in nature unless you're doing something like sauerkraut. Sauerkraut's going to be the best whole food version of that. So I really love that people keep sending me these because it's really encouraging, one, to see that people are acknowledging a connection between nutrition and keeping yourself healthy and safe from creating disease states in your body from the standard American diet. But there's so much more to it than that. It's beyond what are the synthetic vitamins. And what I want to caution people about is starting to be confused at the difference between a synthetic massive dosing versus a whole food appropriate dosing that you're going to get the way nature intended. Always be aware and ask this question: where in nature could I possibly get this massive amount at once? And am I in nature or am I out of nature? If I'm out of nature and I'm an alien, then maybe I can handle these massive, crazy amounts. But I happen to live on this planet. I happen to actually be a part of this natural state. And so I should probably be in sync with the nature as much as possible. So thank you, David, for sending this in. I really appreciate that. But definitely steer yourself towards the whole food vitamin C's that we've talked about. And for those of you who have not heard us talk about that before, those are going to be like peppers. You're going to get great vitamin C from all kinds of peppers. Kiwi is going to be a good source, and sauerkraut, cabbage. Almost all vegetables are going to have some level of vitamin C, but those are going to be the ones that are going to have a lot higher. So a really important distinction again, and it's being so much more emphasized the more people bring me these products that are high dose vitamin C that are actually creating deficits in all the other things that are included in a whole food vitamin C. So stick to your whole foods. Okay. Secondarily, do we already have a question? No? Okay, good. Now, I want to know who asked this question because it's pretty specific. How do I find out if I have pancreatic helminths? And if I have them, what can be done holistically to get rid of them? Wow. This is a massive question. So first of all, helminth is a parasite. There are different types of parasites, and it's just one category. And if we're going to talk about those, we want to talk about, there's a whole range of opportunistic bugs out there that we would call stealth pathogens. These are things that come in and live in your body, and they create a happy home for themselves, and sometimes they take more than what they should. They take more than their share, and that's part of the problem. And they create disease states. And everybody has some level of these, so don't freak out. The microbiome is incredibly complicated. We're going to get into that in just a little bit. But when you have these pathogenic ones, it gets even more complicated as to what is the understanding what's happening in your body. Now, a long time ago, I was looking into the association between these types of infections and autoimmune disease states and things like type 1 diabetes. And as early as 2013, there's an article that I'll post below that I remember reading that was talking about how there's a high incidence in the relationship between these types of parasites and pancreatic or pancreatitis or pancreatic dysfunction. And we look at so many things in our country that are classified as autoimmune, and there's not knowing what the cause is, or some type of a disease that we don't really have an answer for. And the first line of this, I had to go look it up because I want to remember. It said, an increasing evidence of type 1 diabetes and autoimmune diseases in industrialized countries cannot be exclusively explained by genetic factors. I can't emphasize the importance of that statement enough. It cannot exclusively be explained by genetic factors. So they're hitting the end of the road, but they're just not know where the rest of the causes are. But there's a lot of mounting evidence saying we should be looking at these co-infections, these small infections. So to answer your question about how do you know if you have them, that's a really difficult one. And I don't want everybody to freak out, but a lot of people have some small percentage of them. It's just when they get out of control. There are over 800 million people worldwide who have one form of this, and 400 million that have the other one. So there's multiples, and so it's not unusual that you have it. There's a terrible video that my dad used to play in his office called The Monsters Inside Us. I don't recommend anybody watch it, but it'll increase your awareness really quickly about these. But there are blood, you can find them in blood, you can find them in urine, you can find them in fecal tests. You can also, there's going to be antibody tests that they're coming out. So there's a lot of ways to identify them. But the tricky thing is they go through a life cycle. So depending on where they are in that life cycle, that information can show up differently in all of those. So that's one of the reasons why we don't have this at the forefront of our mind, these sneaky little bugs that are living in there. But is there something you can do about it? Of course, there are tons of things that you can do to help out with that. And that is going to be just as complex as the things that people are experiencing because of them. So it has a lot to do with increasing all of the things that your body needs to be able to keep itself healthy. And there are definitely herbs that will be lethal to these bugs. And so for that person who's asking, I would talk to you more specifically about options and different ranges that I would do. But personally, I've learned from our friends in Australia, in fact, the ones who were just here, they gave a great lecture on these stealth pathogens again and talking about all of these great herbs that can be applied in these situations. And they tend to do these cleanses like once a year just to make sure that they're not getting out of control. We talked about artemisinin, the actual herb that was the reason that, I can't remember her name, but she won the Nobel Prize in medicine in 2015 because it was able to kill malaria, which is a parasite, which is something that is really encouraging when you start to see all of these. Now, as I'm saying this, I also just read an article in the Lifetime magazine that was saying that some doctors now are trying to add in parasites to spur on the immune system to be able to take care of other conditions. So it's getting very confusing, but I want you to remember that the more that you can do in the category to strengthen your body and remove those things that are weak in your body, it's all a long-term process. And this brings me to that last point. I'm going to be posting an article right after this about fecal implants. Fecal implants, I know it's a terrible term, but they are showing that kids with autism are improving so many of their symptoms when they're receiving this. What does that tell us? It tells us that it's so complex. There's so many aspects to our microbiome that it's almost impossible at this point for people to be able to figure out what aspects are helping. And I remember years ago learning about the fecal implant being the only procedure that helps with an overgrowth of C. difficile. And I had a nurse in my office this morning who I was working with who told me they're still doing that in the hospitals because they haven't figured out how to balance it. There's so much that goes into taking care of your health, and there's so much that you can do that we get a little overwhelmed and we want that one easy thing. And what I want to warn you guys about is getting to the point where you have to actually get healthier by taking somebody's waste and putting it into your body. That's what a fecal implant is, but it's making these amazing changes because that microbiome is incredibly complex, and that includes a balance with these parasites, with viruses, with bacteria, with funguses, all of those. And there's a lot you can do to help your body get back to it. I couldn't give anybody one particular pathway to do it. Kerry Bone from MediHerb has a fantastic herbal protocol that he's put together for a parasite purge, another one just for a stealth microbiome burden protocol. So there's a lot of herbs that they would suggest, but you still want to look at the person and the individual. What are their exposures? What are they eating? What are they doing that could be increasing that? Maybe they're eating a lot of sushi. Maybe they're eating a lot of raw foods and exposing themselves to it. Maybe they don't have enough stomach acid to be able to destroy things as they're coming into their body. And most people have a little bit of a concern with that. So there's so many things to look at, but the encouraging thing to think about is there's so many things you can do. And I don't want you to have to get to the point where you have to have a fecal implant to improve your health. I want you to start doing those things as soon as possible, slowly over time. When Medical News Today put out that article showing that 1 round of antibiotics takes a year for your body to recover from, it makes sense in how long this process can be. And that's where we hit this roadblock with so many people. We're so used to getting something that gives you an immediate result. And the only thing that's giving them this immediate, obvious result is a fecal implant. We really want to start being respectful of the time it takes to create that same environment that would create a healthy microbiome, as opposed to having to wait until somebody else donates theirs to you. And that is the most inelegant solution that I've ever heard to a problem in my life, and I don't want to have to be a part of it. Which brings me to my last question. This person says, my digestive health is doing very well. Been enjoying food more instead of being nervous when trying new foods, but I do have a couple of concerns. I notice a little gas the day after taking the probiotic that I'm taking. Well, that makes sense, right? When you are changing that environment, certain parts of those pathogens or those opportunistic flora are going to die off, and when they die off, that can create gas, and different aspects of your digestion are going to be changing. So you're going to notice a lot of changes. So is that something you want to have to deal with? No, there are things that you can do to help that process along so that doesn't continue. But I wouldn't take it as something to be worried about. I would take it as information that informs you as to how you can best support that slow rebalancing of your microbiome. And again, guys, you can't do this overnight. I mean, I guess you can with a fecal implant, but does that solve the problem? Does that genuinely change the entire environment? No, you have to look at all the other things that created that environment. Still, putting that fecal implant in there does not change all the conditions that brought you to that case that you needed to have that. So you still have to start making those small changes over time so that you can get yourself to the point where you can be the donor and helping somebody else who needs your fecal implant. Okay, we have a question here. Hi, yes, C. diff was something that we were able to help with before without having to do a fecal implant. Isn't that amazing? You're able to do that when you make the right choices and you strengthen your microbiome and you get rid of the bad guys, you increase the good guys, and you create the environment so the good guys can thrive and so that the bad guys want to go somewhere else. It's really kind of simple, but at the same time, it's all about lifestyle choices, and you can't just do it in one shot, one go. It's a long-term process, and that's the way true healing is across the board. So give yourself time, be respectful of the time it takes, and be consistent. Think about doing little things over a long period of time that make a massive difference, as opposed to trying to do it all at once the way we're used to doing it and wanting it all done now. It's going to pay off in spades over the years. It's going to be a much better long-term plan for everybody. Because we are getting to an age where we are about to be post age where antibiotics actually work anymore. It's getting very close, and we have to be really aware of that fact and understand why is that happening. Because we want that immediate result. We want that ability to stop it now. But there's so many other things that we have to be respectful, and time is one of them, and rebuilding that. A lot of information to throw at you guys, but the takeaway is there's always something you can do. No matter what the people say is a condition, we're finding ways to help it, and a lot of it has to do with this digestion and this microbiome and supporting it with the same things that support you as a healthy person. Okay, thanks for watching, guys. I promise next Thursday it won't be so crazy. We'll just answer some quick, easy questions. But I want you to start thinking about these things in a bigger sense and understanding that we're a part of nature, and when we're respectful of that and when we observe and understand how we work with nature, so many things work so much better as opposed to just fixing one thing. And it is not natural to do a fecal implant, I promise you. But it's effective. So what can we learn from that? That's the question. I'll be putting a lot of these links below so you can see what I'm talking about in more detail. But thanks for watching, guys. Please share this information with people who feel like they are not quite getting the answers that they need, and understanding that there are so many things you can still do just because you've reached a dead end somewhere else. There's always something you do with respect to especially how complex this microbiome is and your body is.